Yeah, let's talk about some of the turnarounds screens you're looking at and maybe some of the things we look for at Geo.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, so what we shared with Geo members so far were basically screens that we've used in the past to identify potential turnarounds. Probably, the key point of the screeners boils down to just improvement that is not necessarily obvious in the first place. So obviously, if you're looking at a turnaround, you might think, oh, increasing revenue, improving margins, things like that. But what we found is that, you have to be kind of careful how to screen that, because if you are going to go for the obvious thing, you're unlikely to really find much. You have to kind of have a screen which is, halfway there, perhaps no revenue growth, but improving margins, right? So that's been one of the screens that we've looked at. And there is like 50, 60 stocks that we've identified, I think, for that screen. And we've kind of like introduced that list to investors that might be interested in those companies. And so basically, of course, what we're looking at is trying to, with the screener, to identify the information arbitrage that, what we do here, with Maj as bread and butter. So trying to find a screen that is not too obvious, and that is not necessarily showcasing that is already, that the turnout is already in full-blown proportions. So, improving margins, no revenue growth. That's one of them. You can also look at basically, income and revenue growth. So basically, let's say that they're still, generating a loss, but the revenue is increasing, right? So, you could see that maybe slowly it could eventually, turn around and actually going to break even and beyond. So the revenue and net income, that was another topic. You can kind of mix that in. You can kind of mix, of course, all these factors inside. But I think that these are probably the basic things that we've pointed out so far. Yeah, these help like to find the stocks that might be improving. And I think that what is also important to do after is to try to find the GAAP, non-GAAP difference, right? Which we are also focusing on. So I think a lot of the times, or several times that we found turnarounds, was based because we looked at the press releases, we looked at the quarterly earnings, and we thought, oh, the company is still making a loss or whatever on GAAP earnings. But sometimes you can adjust that and come up with like an improving trend. They might have one-off things that are related to the turnaround or things like that. So, the screener itself, if you build that, you can kind of start looking into the companies and also try to identify some differences that people might not be really looking at, just because they might not be running the screens, or they might look at the company on the GAAP basis and they say, well, that's not really interesting. But actually, when you put the work in and you try to find things that are small differences, management commentary, of course, is a big part of it as well. Then you start getting some results. So the basis is the screen, and then maybe we can try to find the non-GAAP GAAP differences. And obviously, what Maj is doing and what Maj is great at is to interview the management. And so then we get into that's maybe, of course, way down the line of the research, but I think that then you can understand a lot more when you talk to management, and I think that that's really something that makes a huge difference, because that's what microcap investors are not usually doing. I think that I haven't seen that many people doing it on a regular basis. When I was really looking at others' research, I think I really rarely saw people interviewing the management, which is another important thing. So yeah, like that, the basis can be the screeners. It should be pretty simple. I think we're not running something overly complex, but the revenue margins, of course, these can be gross margin, operating margins. So if you look at gross margin, of course, it can be improving revenue mix. If you look at operating margins, it can also be cutting costs, right? So that was another screen we ran, where basically said no revenue growth, could be loss making, or profitable, it doesn't really matter, but improving operating margin, right? So basically you're looking at some initiative of the management with regards to the company itself. So you have the screeners, and you try to find some information arbitrage if you're lucky, and if it seems good, and if the story is worth looking further, then we usually interview the management, which which you can all access on GeoInvesting, basically the whole research process. But that's how we go about it.